Mark,
Yeah.
we're at this point in our relationship that we've talked to a therapist, and now I had to get a pastor involved. Hey, welcome back to the Interim era. My name's Matt C. I've got my longtime friend Mark Palmer here. Mark, how's it going?
It's going well.
Awesome.
So this is the first one we recorded since I've really had a job. So my interim era is over, but like we always said, we want to keep doing this and seeing if we can provide some inspiration or some help, and excited to be part of that.
Yeah, we're here to help people. That's why we started this. Not to do until we got a job,
Yeah.
but to do to help folks through this transition. And I'm really excited about today's topic. It's funny, I floated it to you a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh man, I wonder what Mark's going to think." And like, you jumped on it. You were like,
Yeah. Well,
"Yes,
you forgot my dad's a preacher.
that's right. I forgot." That's right. So maybe we'll get into that. So today is all about how spirituality, whatever that means to you, we're not here to fire and brimstone you or turn you into one religion or another. It's how spirituality helps you stay grounded when everything else is up in the air or falling apart or you're spinning or whatever it is. And we have a really great friend of mine from here in Morgantown, West Virginia, Reverend Larry Buckland, who is the pastor, the minister at Suncrest United Methodist Church. Larry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Mark, for having me on. I'm really excited about this, and I am grateful that you all are doing what you're doing. You know, you got the experience of going through a tough time, and I think there's no one better that can help people through it when you can identify with the same thing that someone else is going through.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you joining us, Larry. I really appreciate you falling into favor with Mark with the bald head and the button up. Mark always has to wear a button up. Mark will tell you that he has hair. I can tell you I've seen hair on Larry's head before as well.
I shave for this though.
There you go. Consider bald. Larry, tell us, how long have you been a man of the cloth?
Well, my first year of serving 5 rural churches in West Virginia, Ravenswood, was in 2000. So, we're on about 25, 26 years here. Served 5 rural churches there in Ravenswood. And then as United Methodist, we move around some. And so I've been in Ravenswood, Morgantown, Huntington, Fairmont, and back to Morgantown.
Wow, that's awesome. And Morgantown's where you love to be because you're a massive sports fan, correct?
You are absolutely correct, Matt. I'll try to make sure I say that often today.
Great.
Somebody in West Virginia who's a West Virginia fan? I don't understand. That's such an oddity.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit of a Mountaineer fan. Yeah. I'm the optimist in this relationship with Matt, too. So I'm always saying it's going to get better.
Most people go to their pastor for all kinds of different help. I go to my pastor for his optimism and making me feel better about our sports team. So thank you for that.
And Larry, you're not really a fan until you've stolen the coach's chair off his front doorstep. So
I'm looking at it right now. Yes. So
that's true. I know that story. I've seen the chair.
See, so that plays into the question that I know is on everybody's mind before we get started, which is, Larry, you've been a pastor for 25, 26 years, like you mentioned. Have you ever had to deal with a case like me? Somebody that you've had to pray over or pray for so much. We had a therapist on a few weeks ago, and she really wanted to dive into my head. I'm just curious from a spiritual standpoint how you can empathize with that.
Well, I do tell everyone, because of Matt C., I have lots of job security.
I'm glad to provide that for you, that you won't have an interim era. So that's good. That's good. I'm making sure that you're safe there. All right, so let's get into it. First, I want to talk about, when you kind of go through this for the first time, or for going through losing a job. Maybe you've been through it multiple times. It's when we've talked about this multiple times throughout this series as well, that it's losing more than a job. right? And Larry, you've walked people through a lot of different things, major life transitions, and obviously this might not be up there with some, but for some people it really is. What's the common thread you see when somebody loses a job or even a sense of direction?
I think the loss of job is identity. You lose a sense of who you are. When you get up, you've always been identified as this. Oftentimes, you're known more about your career than you are as a husband, wife, partner, spouse, parent. You lean into who you are. I mean, I oftentimes try to tell people not to call me Pastor Larry or Reverend or anything like that. Just call me Larry, because I'm more than my job. And it just happens to be that's what I do. But more often than not, people know me because of what I do. And so I think because of that, the big hole of that, we live into that, and we can't help but do that because most of us are passionate about what we do and we give our all. We work a lot of hours, and we become probably more married to our jobs than oftentimes our own spouses or in our relationships. It totally defines us. So when someone goes through that, it's almost like a divorce or a loss of a loved one. And so they definitely relate when I'm helping someone through job loss as if I was helping someone with a broken relationship or a loss of a loved one. It's a lot of pain, and it needs all these steps that you all are going through to talk about to be able to know who your community is, even separating from the job. That's one of the things that I'm grateful for, Mark, that Matt is a friend that treats me not as a pastor. I know that might surprise you, that he doesn't try to put on anything different. He still has some colorful words to share right in front of me anytime, and I love that. And so I'm probably maybe somewhere in his head, I'm Pastor Larry to him, but I'm his friend. And so that's where I try to help people, is turn them toward their community, the people that they interact with in the good times, the bad times, and the ugly. When you know who are your people, and I think it's important, even if our listeners today are on top of the world, they're having mountaintop experience with their jobs. What if you were not? Who are the people you lean into?
First of all, Jesus didn't hang out with the Pharisees.
Exactly.
So good job. Matt's
let me Google that.
Are you saying that's why I hang out with Matt?
Yeah, because he's kind of like Mary Magdalene. So
that's right. So that's what I could say, that like Pastor Larry's the first pastor I've ever said the F word in front of. Is that what you're? So I don't need to Google it anymore. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
No, we'll explain it later. Get a Bible, man.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have one, I just gave out Bibles at Children's Sabbath a couple weeks ago, Matt. I can get you one.
But you're absolutely right. Like, it's not loss of identity truly, but it feels like it. And like when you lose that connection, it feels very personal. It is very much a loss. And Matt and I have talked about the stages of grief you go through, and it's like it's just something that's completely out of your control, and that's a tough thing to wrap your head around. So like the the song that went through my head when Matt said losing a job, and like it's the Michael Stipe REM Losing My Religion.
Yep.
So but I think it's an opportunity to not do that.
Yes.
Like that's a core piece of who a lot of people are, whatever your faith. And there is obviously a difference between religion and faith, but and we won't go into that because that's nerdy. But yeah, like I think finding that, reconnecting with it, I think that this is a time and an opportunity to kind of draw some strength from there.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to me, Mark, is, I've been through loss of friends and loved ones. I've been through a lot of different things. We all have, right? But
I was just in the back of the store, man.
I know. But when you leave me and I lose line of sight, I get worried. But what really hit me here with me going through this for the first time is once I kind of stepped away and it was all over, and that whole like emotion of anger and fear and all that kind of stuff went away from the initial reaction of it happening, it was this massive weight that kind of just fell on me, which was like, well, who am I now? Like, who am I now? So, Larry, from your view, what's the spiritual side of loss? Not necessarily like religion, but that deep feeling of who am I now? Like, what's the connection there?
I think, it depends how you define spirituality. For all of us, what is it that is, not to sound too trite, but what is our wind beneath our wings, if you will? What is it? Yeah, go ahead, fly, eagles fly.
Yep.
But anyway, what is it that gives us that oomph, that extra? And for some of us, it might be going out and taking a hike here in Morgantown at Cooper's Rock or on the rail trail, and finding God's creation, if you will, or whatever you might take a look at that with. I guess you're going to expect that I might use a couple God words doing what I do. But
is that a touch grass moment?
Yeah. So, how do you find that oomph? So for some, their sanctuary is, out in creation, and being able to find that spirituality and wholeness. For some people, it's doing exercise and yoga, Zumba, whatever you find that finds your outlet to be able to be at one, with Creator. And so for some, it's community, and that's a big part for me. Is finding who are those people, as I mentioned earlier, that I lean into. There was definitely a time in my life, I didn't lose my job, but I was questioning my job back in 2001. I just started. And the person that nurtured me died unexpectedly at 46 with an aneurysm. And so that senior pastor was, 20 years older than me. And so I really started questioning, is this really what I should do? Michael is his name, and he kind of nurtured and kind of really pushed me in this direction, seeing what he felt were my gifts and abilities to help other people and to lean into this call toward ordained ministry. And when he died, I questioned it all. And I can tell you, even though I was employed at those 5 rural churches, I was a terrible pastor. They would have Bible studies on Wednesday night. Well, 3 or 4 of them had Bible study on Wednesday. I didn't go to any of them because for a while I just thought, well, how they know where I am? I got 4 or 5 churches, and that cycle went on. And thankfully, those people still didn't just cut me out of their life, and they had to start figuring, hey, somewhere we should be hitting the rotation. He's got 5 churches, but it's been a year almost. And Larry's nowhere to be seen on Wednesday. And I leaned into this. It's a paraphrased quote from John Wesley. I was going through the motions, and he said, preach faith until you have it, and then preach it some more. And I had lost my faith because I felt like someone else was guiding my employment, my life, my call, my spirituality of saying this is who I'm supposed to be. And I completely questioned it. So even as an employed person, I wasn't living into that. So your spirituality, I think, then is leaning into those kind of people and finding out where it is. For me, I joke, but half joke, my sanctuary oftentimes is Milan Pushkar Stadium at Mountaineer Field or the Hope Coliseum. Is that okay to say that? Or am I getting in trouble for mentioning sponsorships?
No, you're
good. I find my sanctuary sometimes in those places because I go away from, even though now being a pastor in Morgantown, it does seem like when I walk in those places that I'm sometimes still working. I mean, even last night I told you I was meeting someone from the church to sit with last night at the game. And thankfully it didn't feel like work at all. So that was good. But leaning into who you are and being able to turn that off and finding that community for your spirituality, that for me, a couple of hours of turning it off is spirituality to me. Now, that doesn't mean, believe me, I'm partial to Sunday morning, of course. I mean, that's what I do. So I'm partial to that. But I think we all find our spirituality where it is that drives you and gives you that energy that is different from the workplace.
I mean, I think I can equate kind of what I've been going through, and Mark, interested to hear what you say too. But, the last 7 months, I mean, I feel like that rotation that you were talking about, hey, I've got 5 churches and I've got to do Wednesday Bible study, and I'm just not going to any of them, but who knows if I'm not there, right? Like, I feel that because I've had plenty of interviews, and Mark, I know you've had plenty of interviews
Yeah.
too as you were going through it. And the excitement to me was, I just want to get a job. Then I can tell everybody I got a job, right? But there were so many of those that I went through that I know I would have taken the job if they would have offered it to me, but it would have not fulfilled me, right? I knew that 6 months later, I probably would have been in a spot to where I'm just like, I don't really know if this is the right fit or where I want to be or what I want to do, right? A lot of it just felt like, Mark, I said that, hey, the first one to kiss me is getting married. And that's what it felt like during that versus, hey, I really feel like this is the moment, this is the thing for me. So I really, truly understand that, Larry. And I think that we start out the process in so much dust and fog and all of that after you come through it and you get through, even before you get to where what your role ultimately is going to be, it's that path that gets you there. A lot of times is really showing you what you want to do next. And that's kind of like you're saying, Larry, like you preach until the faith comes and then you preach more. Like there was a lot of that of me going, well, would I want to be at this role? Yeah, it sounds good. Like, yeah, people would know the company, but then I'm like, but I don't feel the fit. I don't feel this. So it's like, well, let me just keep looking until I do find it. And that's tough because you do feel that for your family and for other things that the first one that does come along and hold your hand that you need to run off with. So, I do like that path, but I think staying true to where you think you need to go ultimately ends where you hope you should. Mark, I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah. No, so it feels a little bit like a shipwreck. And your first instinct is to grab onto whatever splintered piece of wood you can find. And but that's not.
Promise me you won't let go, Mark, in the freezing water.
Come on, Rose. But no, that's not going to work out, not long term. And I think sometimes people suspect that or suss that out too in the interview process. Like, people are more intuitive than you think they are, and if something doesn't connect, then there's a reason behind it, and like, just keep looking for the right thing. Make sure that values are aligned and the passion's there, and everything's going to work out better. It's very hard to work in a job that you're not passionate about, that you don't believe in, and you will end up with those Wednesday night skips and that kind of thing, because if you're not in it, like, every job these days takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot, and if you don't have that power driving it, it's going to be really tough to deliver what they need.
Yeah. 100%. So we've talked through the kind of the moment, right, when you have the massive piece falls on top of you and you have going through that loss to who am I now and all of that. Let's kind of flip it, because what we know that happens next, Mark, like you said, the boat, you hit an iceberg, the boat splits apart. You're looking for that splinter of wood. There's a lot of free fall that happens in that. It's the wildest roller coaster I think I've ever been on, to where you hit that free fall, you might go up a couple of clicks and be like, oh my gosh, like, this is really looking good. And then you hit another free fall and it just continues.
You watch Larry, it happen on LinkedIn too. Like,
oh my gosh,
I forget what the word is that you've been using. I'm going to go post on LinkedIn because I'm angry.
Yeah.
It's just people flailing, like trying to tread water, but you hit that water and it's cold.
Yeah, there's people that are extremely positive. There's that toxic positivity that we will talk about later. But then there's also people that are, that I feel extremely rough for. And one of the reasons that drove me to start this podcast, which is people that are, hey, I've been out of work for 15 months. Like, I'm going to lose my house. And can somebody give me a freelance and all that? And it's tough to see. And you can almost watch people go through that roller coaster. And Larry, I know you see that every day with people that are going through that in multiple different pieces of their life. When you see people in that free fall and when people are in that, what helps them reconnect to something that's a little more steady?
The good news for me in my relationship with this is oftentimes if people I'm hearing about it, they have had some faith at some point. Not always, because we here at our church do a lot of assistance for people in the community that may not be connected to the church. However, when there are people that are already connected that have had some sort of faith that has brought them here, whether it was small faith, large faith, regular for many years, or even new, they have a connection here. And when they feel like that they have a community here that they can talk to me or someone else, that already gives them at least a life jacket, if you will, something afloat there to be able to hold on to and say, okay, here's someone I can trust and be able to be vulnerable with and talk to. And we've had that here in Morgantown with NIOSH has had, many layoffs in the last year or so. The West Virginia University, just a couple of years ago, as soon as I got here in July of 2023, they were starting to go through that. And so I was meeting with many professors and faculty and different things that were looking like they may have to look and move. I have a friend that his family picked up. They even had a child in our early learning center downstairs. They weren't church members, but they were a friend, and I knew them through that community. And they picked up and moved to California because he got to be a professor out there. And so the life changes of that, but at least he was able to have something to move toward. But it's still life changing when you do that. Right now, with the government shutdown, we have people in our church community that I've talked with that are telling me that they're going to be okay. And part of that is their faith and their ability to have been able to save and been going at this. But they are very concerned about the others that right now that are not getting an income, that are young families with mortgages and things and things. What I sometimes think the definition of faith that other spiritual or clergy leaders may even disagree with me on is that oftentimes the definition of faith is when you can't see. It's like I believe it even though I can't see it. Oftentimes my faith has helped me, just like when I told you that story in 2001, I can lean back into that time now and say, my faith says I got through that hard time, and I believe it was through my faith in God and other community that helped me realize that a quote from another theologian, who was a Presbyterian, I believe, very ecumenical here, So anyway, said basically the paraphrase is the worst thing is not ever the last thing. And that's what I lean into for my faith, is because I know where my faith has helped me before, that even though I feel like this might be a rock bottom now, again, that I believe it will turn around and this isn't the last thing, if that makes sense.
And it feels like that. I mean, I think that's really breaking down the roller coaster ride of it, because when you get any type of help from a networking standpoint, when you're going through this process of looking for a new role after a layoff, everybody says, don't worry, you'll find something, right? Like when I started my outplacement service, they'll say, hey, everybody I've ever worked with, my advisor told me, has landed a job before their program ended. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'll make it. There's some faith there. But man, there's some rocky bottoms there that you hit to where you just feel like, my gosh, I'm never going to find anything. Like, what have I done? Like nobody, like what is going on? And I think, tying that back to faith works extremely well.
It sounds like good news, doesn't it, when they tell you that? But when you're the one and you're still waiting, and then you start questioning yourself, like, well, everybody else does it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very careful with faith journey is, oftentimes I feel like there's this feel good theology sometimes that people want to always walk out feeling fuzzy, that everything's going to be good. And just because you have this faith in God or follow Jesus or that everything's always going to be fine. You're not going to lose a job. You're not going to have a broken relationship and all these things. And you can't tell anyone that. It's not true. life still happens. And so sometimes there's this idea even of, I like to call, prosperity gospel, that, if you love Jesus enough, your bills are going to be taken care of. Well, I know a lot of people in poverty growing up, and I grew up in McDowell County, southern West Virginia, and the coal field's one of the poorest counties in our country. And I know a lot of people there that have a big faith, but they struggle paycheck to paycheck or paycheck at all.
Yeah, 100 for sure. Mark, this really plays into something we haven't been able to talk about because you just now shared your news, right?
Yeah.
You got an offer 6 weeks ago, maybe?
A little bit more than that, but yeah.
8 weeks ago, right? So it's been some time. We've recorded some episodes since that's happened, but, I was extremely happy for you and very happy that you found something. I've had other colleagues and friends and people that I've networked with on LinkedIn that have landed, have felt really happy for them as well. Never feel any animosity, but there is a sense of being left behind too that starts to happen. That was a part of this that I had not encountered throughout this whole process, right? Because, it feels good. There's that fellowship and that coming together when, Mark, you and I are going through the same thing. I've got other people that are going through the same thing as well that I know. And we're kind of all in this together. I want the best for every single person in this, and knew that we weren't all going to get a job the same day, right? Or end up the same way. But
misery loves company.
Yeah, right? Yeah, we do. So I would say that as I watched other people land, was I happy? Yes. But wow, did it start to pull me back in even more to where it's holy crap, I'm the last one, and it starts to feel like that. Now I've since found things for myself and I'm extremely happy on where I'm going. But, I would say the last month had feel those hands pulling you back into the darkness a little bit of look, everybody else is moving on. You're still here, where it's tough, and kind of like what you're talking about, Larry, that, it's tough.
It's where it's very important to, as Mark mentioned, misery loves company, to be in that circle of friends that can identify or going through, but also to seek out community and in your faith to be able to have others that may have been there before, but also have made it to the other side. And as much as that, it might still feel like, okay, I've got something to do. I still got to get a job, all these things, but that you're not only talking with the people that are in the same boat as you, but that you're also talking with people that have been there, done that, and on the other side of it, and gives you that hope and faith to say, this can be for me as well.
Yeah, and I think, Mark, just to pat you on the back a little bit, while yes, you've been extremely busy, and I've been extremely needy by texting you, even about setting up the podcast and all that. You were checking on me. You would call me and see what's up and see how I'm doing and all of that. Others have done that as well. And I think that's now that I'm coming out of my interim era as well, I think we all need to remember that, and we'll all get through this eventually, and we don't know how people are going to go through it, right? And how they're going to end up on the other side. But I think the biggest piece of advice I'd want to give somebody that is coming out of their interim era is don't forget the ones that you were with, right? And the ones that you were with in the trenches. Once you kind of get that role and you kind of move on and feel good, don't forget the other people that were with you. And Mark, you've done a really good job at doing that.
Also, don't stop listening to this podcast.
Yes,
that's right.
100%, because there's all kinds of other amazing things that Mark's very spiritual as well. He's always been that way. His dad was a minister and all of that. So, Mark, you've talked a ton about on this podcast and me knowing you for the last 10 years about finding calm in the most random places. What is a moment that has surprised you recently?
Oh,
on the spot.
Yeah, a moment that surprised, I guess, just being appreciative, like, actually being like full-time employed, or where it is more structured and not just like my consultancy and the freelance and all that. Like, I just have an appreciation for the people, for the situation, for a lot of the little things that I didn't necessarily have or I'd kind of lost. Like, my eyes have kind of been opened up to, I guess, the wonder of the experience again. So I'm kind of viewing it as a blessing that, that I had the opportunity to go through this and learn something from it, and to kind of recharge. But the first thing that came to my mind, and this is dumb because I'm not in Florida right now, but I'm looking at trees with leaves that have changed color and are dropping, and I probably wouldn't have noticed that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but now, because I've had this opportunity to live in Florida where that doesn't happen as much, it's like the same kind of thing. It's like you miss things that you see all the time, but then when they're gone, you maybe miss them, you maybe don't, but when they're back, you have a newfound appreciation for them. So it's kind of finding those moments.
It's a very Stuart Smalley moment, but I appreciate it. Yeah, I think I've found, and this is, I think it's there for all of us, right? Like, we can all find it, and sometimes you have to seek it out, right? Whether if that is, Larry, you were talking about it earlier, going outside and touching grass, going for a hike, going for a bike ride, or doing something like that. But you can find those areas where that calm can come to you. And, I have found those most recently with my 5-year-old daughter, and climbing into bed with her at night, because she obviously still won't, like, you can't just flip off the light and say good night and go to bed. I can do that with my teenager now, but not her. So laying in bed with her and reading her a book, and then turning off the light and hearing her talk about her day as she falls asleep has turned into like the most, and I'm not a meditative guy, I'm always hyper and all that kind of stuff, but has turned into more of a meditative moment for me, to where I'm quiet because I want her to go to sleep. And she is starting to become quiet, that it's just, that is where I've found that kind of calm, and what's kind of a random place for me, that if I've had a crazy day, or I've been really stressed or really down and all of that, I've found that I'll just say to my wife, be like, I'm laying with her tonight. Like, this is me. I'm going in, because that calm just really sits over me there. Larry, do you think that we overcomplicate spirituality? Like, does it always have to be deep? Like that moment I'm talking about there?
No,
like
that's called religion.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's exactly right.
Is it simple? Can it just be simple presence, like doing that? Or like you said, going to the ball game, things like that? Do we overcomplicate it?
Most definitely. And I think that's why people sometimes shy away from the idea of the word religion, because they feel like, okay, there's all this institution, there's all these layers, and we complicate that. Spirituality, I know people that don't attend necessarily a place of worship, but they can tell you that where they find their spirituality. Now, of course, I'm biased and hope they'll come to worship, and be a part of that. But that's because of the community that I find in that. And so that's where I think we overcomplicate it. There are people that come to worship that don't care anything about what I've got to say, but they really love the music, or they really like seeing their friends, and they come to worship. Same things with going to ball games. I mean, it aggravates me sometimes to no end when I see the student section empty because they gave up, or Matt C left because he gave up. It aggravates me to no end. I just shake my head. I don't say anything I regret to Matt. But I find the moments there that are practical, and I think that's what I lean into so much, of not trying to be some theologian or when I pray aloud for a corporate prayer, that it's not something that needs to be so formal or beautiful, that some people are looking for, but that is just speaking into what's real and what people are going through.
Yeah.
And so, we definitely overcomplicate spirituality, as I tried to say, all the layers of places that I believe each person can find their spirituality in their own way.
Dear baby Jesus, sitting in the manger.
That's right.
Well, Larry drinks the Mountain Dew part, so he's always hopping
yeah.
on the Mountain Dew.
Diet Mountain Dew. Don't forget.
Yeah, diet.
Come at you like a spider monkey.
That's right. Larry, you have such an interesting role in society. You know, people come to you all the time and lay problems at your feet, right? Whether if it is loss of a job, loss of a loved one, you know, they can't pay their bill, like so many different issues on a regular basis, right? So you are living that through them all the time, and you've signed up for that, and you believe in what you're doing. And I think obviously Mark and I believe in that too, but you have to recenter yourself too, right? Because you have a life, you have a wonderful family and all that as well. What do you personally do when you feel off center and you've got to go reset?
Some of the things you guys just said, you know, I also have a 5-year-old, Matt. And so, yeah, so doing those times of just being with her, quiet time. Also, sometimes I have to get out of the office here. Oftentimes, I find myself when I'm in the office, I'm not doing my work. I'm helping others, you know, whether it's the staff or the community or people that just walk in. And we get a lot of that, you know, right where we're planted here in Morgantown. We're right in the middle of things. And so I have to find time just to walk out of the office. Maybe I just go to a coffee shop. And sometimes I might go to a coffee shop that's not right next to us that maybe I'm not going to be recognized right away, to be honest with you, you know, just to unplug. So sometimes it's great to just, and, you know, here in Morgantown and being a pastor, I don't have to leave Morgantown for very much. But if I would drive, you know, 15 miles to Waynesburg or drive 20, 25, 30 miles to Fairmont just to get out of town, sometimes is a way that I will unplug and just go listen to a podcast in the car.
This one.
Of course, you know, that's, yeah, I'll be sharing it and telling everybody. So going and listening to a podcast, going for a walk, doing that, you know, whatever it might be, I find my ways to unplug. And then oftentimes those are the times that I've got ADHD, guys, you know, and so
we all do, all three of us here. So you're good. You're in good company.
So it takes a while for my noise to get out of my head. And so I have to try to find ways to give that time for that noise to get out, for me to be able to do what I should be doing is offering time of prayer, not only for others, but for my own spirituality and my own faith, to just pray and give thanks and reflect on what I get to do. And that's what I try to tell my staff all the time. I tell them church work is really hard. And if you don't feel like you can do that, then you probably shouldn't. I had an Old Testament professor in seminary that said, if you can go and do something else and be happy, go do it.
Yeah.
And because church work can be hard because of all the things that come with it. So finding your own space to, in my world, to be able to say, I'm going to talk to God before I talk for God, if that makes sense. Because, you know, a lot of people are leaning into me to answer their hard questions or their theological debates in their minds. And so if I don't find that place to care for me, I'm going to have a hard time caring for others.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about self-care, right? In the world today. Is what you're talking about soul care? Yeah,
it's definitely soul care. But there's still something to that, you know, of soul care. I think if you take care of the soul, it goes along with taking care of self. I tell people all the time, when I am in the best place of soul care, then I am in the best place physical care, mental health care, and all those things. When I take the best care of soul care. When I'm not taking the best care of soul, then I'm eating whatever comes at me, you know, and I love to eat.
It's a bad time right after Halloween. I've found it.
Exactly.
If the soul's not right, you eat a lot of Halloween candy.
Exactly. So yeah, you know, those things just kind of go in line for me. Now, other people, it'll be a different thing. When other people say, hey, I'm hitting the gym regularly, I'm attending my yoga class regularly, you know, that's when I'm at my best, because that, and my wife would tell you that's when she's at her best, is when she is going to Zumba and yoga. You know, and life and work gets in her way from getting to those things. And then I encourage her to go do those things because it's better for everybody. when
Mhm.
when she's gone to yoga.
And there's science behind that too. Like there's endorphins that are released, and you're building muscle, and like there's a lot of things that actually contribute to that. But Larry, you're missing an opportunity here. You don't have to go find a random coffee shop. Like we've all seen the Superman movie. Just take the glasses off and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about LinkedIn. There's so much toxic positivity on social media. And I think what I've learned through this process over the last 7 months is that social media is not a good place. It's also, there's some good to it, but it's also not a good place to be when you are going through a transition period to where you are feeling out of balance, right? Because you see a lot of that toxic positivity, people that are performing that way because of social media and it's in front of an audience. People saying everything happens for a reason, et cetera, et cetera. Larry, what's your take on kind of all of that?
Yeah, I did a sermon series one time called 10 Dumb Things Christians Believe. And one of them was everything happens for a reason. And, there will be people listening now that will argue that and hey, give them my contact. That's fine. Well, I'd love to have a coffee with them and talk about it, because we want to believe that everything just happens for a reason. I look at people that have lost jobs or have cancer, I don't believe that in my faith and my theology that God is willing you to lose your job so that you get greater faith when you get the new job. I don't believe that. That's not the God that I want to believe in. I don't believe in the God that says, when someone comes up to someone with cancer, oh, well, God must have known you could handle it. Hell no. I can't handle, if I get that diagnosis tomorrow, I can't handle it by myself, and so that's what I am going to push back on, that everything happens for a reason. Be a little vulnerable here with you guys. In 2011, I went through a divorce. And that was the timing then, just because of so many people followed me on Facebook that really didn't know me. And also, you get on Facebook and you see these picture perfect families of everything's great and all this stuff and all the vacations and all those things that I got off Facebook. And it's always funny now when I get an email that somebody's trying to log into my Facebook and haven't been on since 2011. So I like, okay, that's not me. So I did just deactivate it. So it's still out there. I could log in today, and bring all those people back into my life, I guess. But I'm not seeking that kind of everything happens for a reason to go back and say, hey, you know what? Now, because I went through a divorce because God knew God was going to be able to use me later to help people that went through a divorce. I don't believe that was the intent. Can I? Yes. I can be able to say I went through that. But I didn't sign up for a divorce. My ex-wife didn't sign up for a divorce. My son Trey did not sign up to be, going week to week to me or to my ex-wife. We didn't sign up for that. So that whole idea of everything happens for a reason, I think is a little bogus. But I understand why people want to lean into that, because they want hope. And don't we all want that when we have something that we've lost? We want some hope. So that idea that everything happens for a reason and it's going to get better is something we want to lean into. I want people to lean into that the worst thing's not the last thing. And because of that hope and that faith that I have, because I've seen it from my past or I've seen it in others, that I believe with my faith and my family, my community, and all those things, somehow, some way, I'm going to come out on the other side of it. But it doesn't mean that the worst thing was meant to be.
Yeah, and you talk about holding faith and hope. What does it look like to hold those when the situation doesn't change right away, right? And you deal with that a lot, people with terminal illnesses and things like that. So what does it look like to hold on to those even when, like, we're so used now to things like happening in an instant? How do you do that when the situation's not going to change right away?
Yeah. I have a friend that her name was Christina Drainer. She died at 41 of cancer. She's a school teacher, Spanish teacher in Fairmont. She was a member of our church when I was in Fairmont, and she embraced and held on to a life and faith and her daughter as a single mom, but had very supportive parents. And she leaned into her diagnosis the best she could. And I don't know how she lived to be 41, because I'm going to say it was about a 6-year battle. Mm-hmm. And there were times that, you would look at Christina and you would say, wow, she doesn't even look sick. How does she continue to do what she does? And of course, then COVID happened, which was a hard time, very hard time for me, who looks for community. And I remember the very first time that she walked into church after COVID season. She came in, she probably had a mask on and everything, because even though we were on that other side of COVID, she has cancer. And, I remember just feeling overwhelmed with emotion and tears that I couldn't stop. Just seeing her presence and seeing her fight to lean into something that, no, this didn't happen just because she was strong enough to do it. Because, her hope and her prayer was she was going to see her daughter get through school. That was her prayer, to raise her child. And her prayer wasn't answered. Yeah. But what I can tell you her prayers were answered was that she fought like hell. And she fought against cancer and believed that she was going to give it all she could. And so those are the fights that, whether it's a job loss or a diagnosis, that I hope we lean into and saying, I'm going to give it all I got because of my faith and because of my hope. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I believe that because the people around me, I'm not going to fight this fight by myself.
Everything happens for a reason is also it goes against free will.
Exactly. So, as going to a Presbyterian seminary, I can tell you there were a lot of debates for me, being one of the second largest population were United Methodists in seminary. And oftentimes there's this idea, you won't hear this talked about or preached, but in doctrine, this idea of predestination almost, and the elect. And so when I had a class on evil, that was the name of the class. It was actually my favorite class, but it was based on the Holocaust. And all the people there had a hard time believing that God said, hey, I'm going to make the Holocaust happen. God's not saying, hey, Mark and Matt, you're losing your jobs. I just don't see that God is a puppeteer like that and saying this is the way it's going to be so that you can go through a hard time and rise above it later.
Mark, it's time for hot takes. It's got to be.
Takes.
Hot takes. Hot takes.
We need more energy in that.
Yeah. Hot takes, hot takes.
Hot takes.
Larry, did God make you and Mark bald so light reflects better?
Hey, I feel like, God knew our heads could do it. Not everybody can pull it off. And I'm saying Mark and I are pulling it off.
Well, that's the thing. I did pull it off. So too much of this.
Hey, same.
Larry, you can't find your calling if you're always on a conference call.
Well, it just depends who you're talking to, I guess.
All right. Some people meditate, others mow the lawn. Do both count?
Yes.
I totally agree with that.
You
finding
do?
You gotta find that moment where you're in your head, but you also get out of your head.
Unfortunately, I'm highly allergic, so it really gets in my head. But
yeah, your wife would just say you don't want to mow the lawn.
Yes, but the mowing the lawn is not my meditative place. But there are a lot of those things that seem task worthy, but become meditative spaces, like mowing the lawn.
I've found it in cooking since 2020. I don't know why.
Yeah.
My wife used to cook all the time and make dinner and all that. Now I do it, and I find it in that. Larry, faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about not throwing your laptop when you don't.
Yes. That's the whole preacher faith until you have it right there. You keep going and doing it until you have that faith again.
And then hope's not a feeling. It's a daily fight with your calendar.
I'm the person that always needs something to look forward to. So I would say it's definitely in my daily calendar. I'm always looking forward to something. And that's why COVID was such a hard time for me, was not knowing what to look forward to. So I found myself watching cornhole tournaments on ESPN with people wearing masks, to watch something competitive.
The Ocho. Yeah, I think it's about choosing hope and balance every day, right? Life feels stacked every single day. Even I was just as busy when I didn't have a job as when I had a job, right? And which was crazy. But you still have to find a time in those days to choose hope, choose balance, and do stuff for yourself.
And, real quick, guys, just circling back a little bit, I feel like I lost my identity a little bit during COVID, even though I was technically working. I was recording a sermon for people every Sunday. Had my son Trey. We go out and video someplace besides the church just to get out. When we had, Mother's Day, I did it in front of the first Mother's Day church in Grafton, West Virginia. We went to the National Cemetery Memorial Day weekend, or I'd go and do it in front of the hospital for first responders, those kind of things, seeking out community. But what I found myself where it felt like a job loss is I couldn't be there when people were hurting. People weren't doing funerals. If people lost a job during COVID, I couldn't go touch them. And when I mean touch them, just be there in their presence, and hug them. Nobody wanted to do a Zoom call to talk about that they lost their job.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I lost my identity a lot there during that season, and it was so hard.
Larry, where can people find you?
Oh, well, anywhere in Morgantown, just about. But Suncrest United Methodist Church, the easy way is, if you see my name listed here, just at gmail.com. So if you want to send me a note, so grateful to talk with anybody and have friendly, even conversation and or debate. I love that. Matt knows I love to debate with him all the time about why
this team's going into the toilet. Larry's like, no, it's not.
And why they are not the worst team in WVU football history. So I love to have these debates. And so if you want to talk theology or you just want to talk life, I love that. But I am looking forward to telling people about your all's podcast, Mark and Matt, and just honored and grateful to be able to have this conversation with you guys. Glad that you are on the other side right now, but knowing that you're going to keep going so that other people find light and like you all have and hope in the time that they're searching.
Well, I really appreciate it, Larry. I appreciate your time today, not only as a friend and all of that, but also joining us today and helping folks get through this crazy, crazy time and crazy world that we're in the middle of right now. So thank you for that. I thank Mark Palmer for joining us from a random hotel. I'm hoping he doesn't get stuck at the airport for 8 hours before he gets home.
Same.
Mark,
but
thank
I've got
you for joining
faith
us.
and hope for that. So
yes. And I will continue to bug Mark from today until we record the next one of these to put one out. Please share this with your friends, like, subscribe, leave us a review. And for that, for Mark Palmer and Matt C., this has been the Interim. Larry, thanks so much, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Might be your most rambling guest, but that's all right.
No, this is great.
That's why we edit.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you.